She told me she always dreamed of being a best-selling author, and when that rejection notice arrived, her heart sank. Maybe I should give up, she said. I just don't fit in any category. I could hear the hurt, the doubt, and the resignation in her voice. Hey everyone. Welcome back to Your Right Life Coach, the podcast for heart-led authors who are ready for motivation and momentum. Today I want to talk about something almost every writer knows in their bones: rejection. That email or that phone call, the one that starts with, "Thank you for your submission. However, it's not a fit for our publishing list right now." If you've ever read one of those and felt your whole identity as a writer wobble, even just a little, this episode is for you. Because I don't think rejection means what we've been told it means, and I want to spend some time unpacking that with you today. An author I coached a few years ago received an email from her agent saying he couldn't sell her book. The publishers he pitched it to had said her novel was written well, but it wasn't Christian enough. Even after reworking her manuscript to fit their publishing criteria, the agent still came back with the same news. It was rejected by every publisher he pitched it to. Ouch. She told me she always dreamed of being a best-selling author, and when that rejection notice arrived, her heart sank. Maybe I should give up, she said. I just don't fit in any category. I could hear the hurt, the doubt, and the resignation in her voice. I asked why she wants to write and who she wants to write for. Instantly, she said, I want to write for the moms in my town, the ones cheering for their sons at the high school football games. The moms who are just like me, looking for peace and hope in their lives. Well, when a writer is that sure about who they're writing for, I know it's only a matter of time before they reach their audience, whether they hit bestseller lists or not. So I asked her, what if you focused on those moms and kept writing for them alone? And that's when it hit me. The rejection wasn't the story. What she did next actually was. Long story short, she decided to self-publish. Those moms loved that book, so she kept writing. And guess what? Her next book was an Amazon bestseller on the day it released. She now says, rejection is redirection. That's worth remembering. So here's what I want to share with you today, because this pattern is so common. I've noticed it showing up like a broken record over and over again in the writers I meet. Rejection is information, not a verdict. And I'll say that again because it's worth repeating. Rejection is information, not a verdict. Here's the first thing I want you to hear about that. A rejection is not a judgment on your worth as a writer or even as a human being. It's information. It's data. That's it. That's all. Sometimes it's information about fit. A particular agent, a particular editor, a particular publishing house might say your particular book idea isn't the right match for their current publishing plan. Sometimes it's information about timing. The market shifted. The list was already full. The publisher is no longer publishing books in your category. These things happen in publishing. Sometimes it's information about craft. Maybe it's scenes that need more tension, a concept that needs more clarity, a memoir that needs more emotion. And sometimes, yes, it's information about platform. Agents and publishers need your help getting the word out. So of course they're going to evaluate your ability to do that too. This actually happened to me. A publisher once reached out about writing a book for a series they were planning. I sent over a proposal, and the email that came back said they loved the idea, but my platform wasn't quite big enough yet. That didn't surprise me. It was disappointing, but it also gave me something I could actually work on. And I'll tell you this much, platform is something you can build or borrow, even if you're not spending your life on social media. A small platform is not a locked door. After the publisher said that my platform was lacking, they asked if I'd be willing to collaborate with another author who has a significant platform. I thought about it for a few days while I let go of my disappointment, and then I texted Tricia Goyer, a prolific author of more than 100 books, who happens to be a friend with an enormous platform. She and I had talked about writing together several years back, so when I ran my idea by her, she said, yes, why not? Let's go for it. Our book, Running on Empty Isn't Your Calling, a whole mom reset for mind, body, and soul, is scheduled to be released in April of 2027. Not only did I land a contract without a platform, I had a blast working with and learning from a pro. In the world of marketing, that's called borrowed influence. And if I can go that route, you could too. But what I want you to notice, fit, timing, craft, and platform are all things you can work with. None of those are saying you shouldn't be writing. Your worth is not up for negotiation in the first place. Here's a small but powerful shift you can practice. Instead of saying, I was rejected, try saying, my proposal was rejected, or the agent or editor wasn't interested. It sounds small, but this puts the rejection back where it belongs, on the outcome, not on you. For writers especially, it's easy to confuse criticism of the work with criticism of the person, but they're not the same thing. I've reviewed hundreds of book proposals and manuscripts over the years, and I can tell you, some of the books I love most were rejected several times before they found their home. The rejection notice wasn't lying about the book's readiness for that particular agent or publisher. It just wasn't telling you what you thought it was telling you. Now you might be thinking, hey, that's easy to say about one rejection, but what if it's not just one? What if it's rejection after rejection after rejection? Well, that's a fair question, and here's my honest answer. A pattern is still information. It's just more of it. If 10 agents pass and 8 of them mention the same thing, that's not a coincidence. That's data telling you something specific and actionable. The goal was never to ignore the pattern. It's to actually read what it's telling you instead of translating it into I'm not good enough. And if you've done that work, you've listened, you've revised, you've asked for real feedback, and the pattern still isn't shifting, that's when it might be time to ask a bigger question. Is this the right path for this particular book right now? Not forever, not for you as a writer, just for this book right now. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for a manuscript is to let it rest and start the next one. I know one author who has published dozens of books, but her first manuscript has never found a home. If she had stopped there, she never would have known how capable and talented she is. So let's look at why it actually hurts. Here's something I found super comforting, and I want to share it carefully because I'm not a neuroscientist, and this is more of a soft framing than a clinical claim. But from what I understand, our nervous systems don't always distinguish clearly between social rejection and physical danger. Some research suggests the brain processes them in overlapping ways. What that means practically is this. If a rejection email makes your chest tighten or your stomach drop, that's not you being dramatic. That's not you being too sensitive for this business. That's a very old part of your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's treating a threat to belonging as a threat to your life, period. So, friend, if you've ever felt silly for how hard a form rejection hit you, I invite you to let that go right now. Your physicality isn't broken. It's just doing its job of keeping you alive a little too well. And here's the other thing our brains love to do with a single rejection. We turn it into a forecast. One agent passes and suddenly you're thinking, I'll never get published. One hard review comes in and it becomes, no one wants what I have to offer. But ask yourself, what's the actual evidence? Usually, the evidence is smaller than the story. One person said no, that's it. That's a much smaller story than the one your brain just tried to sell you. Here's the last thing I want to leave you with, and it's the piece that ties back to something I believe all the way down. The authors who keep going aren't the ones who stop feeling rejection. I want to say that again a bit slower. The authors who keep going are not the ones who stop feeling the sting of rejection. They're the ones who've built a container for it. A container doesn't mean numbing yourself. It doesn't mean pretending the rejection didn't land. A container means you've got a place to put the feeling that isn't the same place where you decide your next move. You feel the emotion fully, honestly, and then you come back to what's true. your alignment with why you're writing this book in the first place. That's the through line of everything I teach. Alignment creates unstoppable momentum. Not hustle, not a thicker skin, alignment. When you know why your message or story matters to you, a rejection can hurt and still not derail you because the hurt lives in the container and your alignment keeps driving the car. One of the healthiest things you can do after a rejection is to keep taking meaningful action. Finish the next chapter, send the next query, pitch another podcast, keep creating. There's an old saying I love, you can't steer a parked car. Movement is what keeps you in the driver's seat. So here's a practice you can actually use. The next time a rejection lands, give yourself 10 minutes, no more, and write down 3 things. First, what it actually said in plain language, not what you're afraid it meant. Second, one small action you can take with that information. And third, one thing about the work you still believe, even now. Then close the notebook. You've honored the feeling and you've kept your hands on the wheel. And here's one more practice, maybe the most important one. Imagine a close friend just went through the exact rejection you did. Would you tell them, well, I guess you're a failure? No, of course not. You'd probably say, I'm sorry. I know how much this meant to you. Keep going. Offer yourself that same kindness. You deserve the compassion you'd hand someone else without a second thought. A coaching client once told me she'd gotten tired of looking at the pile of rejection letters piling up on her desk. So she decided to put them to good use. She turned them into a lampshade. She was crafty and creative like that. And you know what? The lamp glowed beautifully under that shade, a reminder that even a multitude of rejections couldn't dim the light she was called to shine. Here's the deeper truth underneath all of this. If your entire sense of who you are depends on other people's approval, every rejection becomes a small crisis. But your character, your values, your relationships, your purpose, those don't move just because one editor said no. Also, rejection is not evidence of God's rejection. Some of the people God used most powerfully, like Joseph, Moses, David, Jeremiah, the Apostle Paul, even Jesus, they all experienced profound rejection. Their value and their calling were never determined by other people's opinions, though. Their faithfulness was. So here's a question worth asking yourself. Am I seeking approval or am I seeking faithfulness? Approval depends on other people. Faithfulness is something you get to choose no matter what the outcome looks like. And one more thing, don't carry this alone. Rejection loses some of its power when you share it with someone who can just listen without rushing to fix it for you. Friend, if you've received some rejection for your writing, I want to congratulate you. Why? Because it means you took a chance and put something out there. You are vulnerable enough to ship, as author and marketing expert Seth Godin would say. I'm so proud of you for that. So here's your invitation for this week. If this episode struck a chord in you, hit subscribe and leave a review. It's the simplest way to help this show find the writers who need it. And I promise it won't be rejected. Then I want you to get really specific about something. Who are you actually writing for? Not everyone, just your reader. And if you want help really specific, I've put together a reader avatar worksheet. You can grab it at alicekreider.com/readeravatar, and then let it help you identify your ideal reader, the one who's looking for what you write. Then, if you want to gather alongside other writers who get it, that's exactly what happens inside the Inkwell Collective, especially in our monthly masterclasses and workshops. You can find out more at alicekreider.com/Inkwell Collective. Now, I'm sure you know that letting go of rejection is easier said than done. So if you want support with bouncing back every single time, that's something I love coaching writers through. Feel free to email me directly at admin@alicekreider.com or find me at alicekreider.com. And remember, you've got a story worth telling and a message to deliver. I'm so glad you're here, friend, and I'll catch you on the next episode.